In today's video, let's hear the brief tale of the Black Blood Marauders, Jiri Ra, and the Dragonborn. The following quest, Lights Out, involves corruption, deception, and violence, being taken advantage of, lying, and bloodshed. At the end of it, the player gets their fair share of spoils, but it comes at a cost. If this is a story that sounds interesting to you, then sit back, relax, and enjoy a tale from the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. As per usual, the facts and information provided are brought to you by the game itself and the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages. The adventure begins with the player in the City of Solitude. Lingering around the main gate, not far from Angeline's aromatics, you'll spot the Argonian, Jiri Ra. Speaking with him, he shares an interesting proposition.
You're passing through Solitude? Maybe you're looking to make some easy gold, yes? It's easy to find things to sell. Things nobody will miss. Things from underground, or just left lying around in someone's house. I bet the two of us were very alike. So why not take the next step? We can help each other. My sister Dija and I are treasure hunters. We like to collect things. I knew you looked like a clever one. With the war, many more ships come through these docks, loaded with weapons and pay, but few people, and they pass through dangerous waters. We have an interest in one of those boats, the Ice Runner. The Solitude Lighthouse will be guiding it in, but if its fire were to go out, the Ice Runner would run aground. What an interesting idea. I think if someone were to do something like that, there would definitely be a certain amount of loot to be shared. Yes, if someone were to put out the lighthouse fire and then meet me on the docks afterwards, I could certainly direct them to that loot. Don't worry about them. We'll make sure they wash up safe. Maybe they'll even pay us for their heroic rescue from their sad crash.
You can try and uphold justice by threatening to turn him in, but nothing really comes of it. If this is something that you're actively tracking, it probably goes without saying that this quest leans more towards the immoral side. Now, without jumping ahead too much, depending on your allegiance in the Civil War, you might feel differently about future events. The lighthouse is located northeast of Solitude and is a short ride away. Arriving on site, the area is fairly void of life, so extinguishing the flame shouldn't be much trouble at all. Ascending to the top and activating the pyre, the quest updates and tells you to meet with Jiri Ra. The Argonian can now be found by the East Empire Company warehouse, and he shares some good news with you.
Looks like you had no trouble. The effects have already been felt. The Ice Runner has failed to dock on time. Without the lighthouse, the Ice Runner will have swung wide of the western shoal and run aground on the eastern coast. My sister Dija will be at the wreck with our Black Blood Marauders. She knows to expect you.
While the plan worked, Jiri Ra makes mention of a few new accomplices, Dija his sister, and a gang called the Black Blood Marauders. Already, the share of treasure is getting split into fewer pieces. Having a peek at the map, the Ice Runner ran ashore east of Solitude. Upon getting close, you'll see a group of men roaming around the deck and the nearby shores. These are the Marauders, and while they're armed to the teeth, they seem quite friendly.
You're the one who put out the fire in the lighthouse, right? That was good work. Dija's in the hold of the ship. Go down 2 levels.
Boarding the Ice Runner, it's apparent that Jiri Ra lied to you. Lying across the deck are the bodies of slain Imperial soldiers. Given the blood splatters and their positions, it looks like the Marauders slaughtered them. Entering the interior of the boat, you'll come across more Blackbloods as well as bodies of the crew. It's more than just legionnaires. There are dead sailors as well, likely just men who were looking for work, sailing from another province to get their paycheck and then on to the next job. Worth noting too is that a lot of the chests and caches are already emptied. Jiri Ra said that you'd be able to get your hands on some riches, but other than some loose change in the dead's pockets, there's not much here. Descending to the lowest level, Dija is standing in one of the back rooms. She's by a boss level chest, which was also emptied. It's clear at this point that there's nothing left for you here.
My brother told me you were coming. I'm supposed to give you what you've earned. Ha! I'm afraid the loot's already been moved. You've been useful to the Black Bloods, though. You've earned a quick death.
It's now that Deja and the Black Bloods turn hostile. On the Argonian's person is a note with Jarira's location. Your only option of getting out of here is self-defense, and you've got to fight your way out. However, none of the enemies are particularly that tricky to defeat. Deja is placed at the same level as the player. She fights using a dagger and wears hide armor. Once she's been slain, you can pick up the note, which reads, "Once you have picked up the packages, send them on to me at Broken Oar Grotto. The fool who did our work at the lighthouse should arrive shortly thereafter. Make sure the player is taken care of." As for the Marauders, their leveling is quite interesting. They can range anywhere from level 1 to 25. This means that you might have an incredibly easy time escaping the Ice Runner, or you might have your work cut out for you. In my case, once Deja was defeated, I was practically one-shotting the grunts with wind shear. They come in the forms of melee fighters, wizards, and archers, so there's some fun there for everyone. Once the Black Blood resistance has been defeated, it's time to finish what you started and head after Jarira. From the wreck of the Ice Runner, Broken Oar Grotto is to the northwest, right off of the northern shores. Entering the cave, you'll spot some marauders by the entranceway, and they're having a rather intriguing conversation.
It's to keep it safe, but I know he's just keeping it for himself.
If only we could get our hands on that treasure. We could get out of here and never look back.
Maybe. For now, just lay low and do your job. I have a feeling we'll be rid of the captain soon.
There seems to be some tension among the Black Bloods, and it sounds like this so-called captain has a target on his back. Crawling through the grotto, there are quite a few marauders in here. They're stationed throughout the cavern and patrol the walkways. However, that makes them easy targets to pick off. If your marksmanship is decent enough, you shouldn't have any issues taking out a majority of the grunts. While you haven't gotten to the big hall yet, there are a lot of minor chests and caches around that can be looted. This more than makes up for the lack of treasure found on the Ice Runner. Traversing the grotto, you'll eventually come to the end of the line. Here, the Black Bloods have made their base out of a broken ship that's run aground. This small section is filled with marauders and contains Jarira as well as the aforementioned captain. Unfortunately, for lore and immersion's sake, Jarira has nothing to say to the player and is immediately hostile. The same goes for Captain Hargar. Now, the captain falls under the same radiant leveling system that the rest of the Black Bloods follow. In my case, Hargar was a monster. 3 hits and I was done. For him, he took more than a few swings to bring down. On the other hand, Jarira shares the same stats and build as his sister. A couple of slashes with a blade, a fireball or two, or even a well-timed unrelenting force should do the trick. Speaking of which, if you're having difficulty taking on the marauders, more specifically the captain, pushing them all into the water below makes for easy targets. Once they are swimming around, picking them off with a bow or some destruction magic works wonders. As soon as everyone's been defeated, the Ice Runner's true treasure is all yours. The boss level chest contains leveled loot, but if you're like me, then you might be less than impressed with its provisions. Scattered around the cabin are some other minor treasures that are for the taking. This includes Captain Hargar's journal. It reads, 8th of Evening Star, 4th Era, Year 200. Jarira is up to something big. He wouldn't tell me exactly. All he said was, it'll be just like the good old days, before the cave-ins sealed your boats in there. We can't send our ships out of here anymore. What is he hinting at? 14th of Evening Star, 4th Era, Year 200. He wants to know what loot we have saved up. I don't care what he says, I'm not telling him anything about my stash. It stays down there where it's safe. I can't imagine he'd ever jump in the murky water, let alone swim down to that sunken boat. 21st of Evening Star, 4th Era, Year 200. It's on. Jarira and his sister Deja have something cooked up. All they need is a scapegoat. I wonder where they'll find someone dumb enough to do what they say. There's bound to be someone out there who will. Now, through these readings, the player learns that there's additional treasure submerged somewhere in the water below. Heading towards the sunken ship, you'll find another boss level chest at its top deck. Without the captain's key, which is in Captain Hargar's inventory, it's secured by a master lock. Again though, in my case, the loot was less than impressive. As for the quest, Lights Out, it officially concluded when Jarira died. Other than making sure that you loot just about everything in here, there's not much more to cover. So with that being said, let's discuss what we can about this quest. Lights Out is rather short. It feels like it just crosses over from being a miscellaneous task. If the broken Oar Grotto portion wasn't added to the mission, it probably would have gone under the Misc quest section. I think it felt shorter than it actually was because nothing was exceptionally challenging. Extinguishing the lighthouse flame is as easy as activating it. The wreck of the Ice Runner is really close to Solitude, and Broken Oar Grotto is near the lighthouse. Juri Ra and Deja were mediocre opponents, while Captain Hargar was the only one who put up a good fight. Apart from some brief conversations with Juri Ra and a handful of words with Deja, there isn't much in the way of dialogue. It really is a quest solely focused on combat. After all is said and done, it doesn't feel like there are any lasting effects or that the world has been changed because of it. Not every quest needs to feel like that, but it's nice to see when our actions have consequences. Perhaps with the Imperial Legion, Juri Ra's brother, Galumai, or even with the Black Blood Marauders. Overall, I enjoyed the concept of the quest and its first part, wreaking havoc by deactivating the lighthouse's flame, boarding the Ice Runner, and slowly finding out that you were deceived. I think the second part with Broken Oar Grotto though was a bit lost on me. It felt very robotic and repetitive. Segments that we've seen time and time again in Skyrim. Perhaps some last bit of dialogue with Juri Ra would have changed my feelings on it. Getting that closure with this quest could have gone a long way for me. According to the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, there's a scenario where you do get to have one final chat with him, but it's very superficial and pretty much runs parallel to him saying, "This ends now." In terms of lore, there's also not much to discuss here. Everyone whom you had to deal with in this quest is dead. There are no survivors, and as mentioned prior, nothing really happens with Galumai. His story gets told through the Thieves Guild questline. Now, I did take an interest in the Black Blood Marauders and their possible origins. I liked the idea of the signature markings on their faces, which probably just acts as identifiers, and I wanted to see how high up their operation goes. Unfortunately, they can only be found at the wreck of the Ice Runner and in Broken Oar Grotto. This means that you only encounter them through either Lights Out or in one of the various Radiant quests. They too are a fairly shallow faction. However, through Captain Hargar's journal, we did learn a little bit about them. Prior to the year 200 of the 4th era, the Black Bloods had a fleet of boats that were once docked in the grotto. They used this area as their hideout and base of operations. Based off of context, it seems like the Marauders were more like pirates. Given their fleet size, they probably met traveling merchants or cargo ships out of the Sea of Ghosts and robbed them. These are probably the good old days that Juri Ra refers to. That also explains the Black Blood's numbers, as their ranks were well into the double digits. At some point, the grotto's entrance got caved in, and it ended up sealing the fleet inside. Without their ships, they had to resort to more drastic measures, as their operation was severely weakened. This is where Juri Ra and his lighthouse plan come into play. Now, it's very minor and doesn't offer much in the way of lore, but through a Radiant Bandit quest, we learn that Captain Hargar recently escaped from Solitude's dungeons. He's the focal point of Attar's Radiant quest, and thus can be a double whammy for the player to eliminate. Now, this could possibly mean that Juri Ra and Hargar have tried out some other risky schemes. This could have very well been how Hargar ended up in Solitude Jail, and why he doesn't want to be the one to extinguish the lighthouse flame. Again, the lore here is brief, and I'm making a lot of assumptions, but at least we ended up getting something. Overall, Lights Out is a fun, brief quest, but it lacks depth. The story is there, it has good bones, and could have come out to be even more than it was. However, I feel as though it just fizzles out towards the end and loses its potential. It becomes a simple bounty hunting quest. Defeating Juri Ra and the Black Blood Marauders really only benefits the player. Sure, some people back in Solitude have a bone to pick with Juri Ra, but they seem none the wiser with his death, and life goes on afterwards. Maybe though, the quest's claim to fame is that it really is about greed and corruption. It deals with greedy characters of all kinds, turning on one another if only to gain a little. Juri Ra, Deja, and the Black Bloods lie and kill everyone aboard the Ice Runner. They then turn their attention to you. At the beginning of Broken Oar Grotto, we overheard two of the grunts wish ill will on the captain and plotted to take his stash of treasure. It's a quest where everyone pretends to fight on the same side as one another, but in all reality, It's every man for themselves. I'd love to know your thoughts on this quest down below, and until next time, keep on adventuring.